So protecting against Log4j, this is a very recent vulnerability disclosed, a very critical one actually. And if you look at the base score, it has a critical 10 score, this kind of vulnerability. And just to, if someone is not aware, what this means, this kind of vulnerability is that an attacker can exploit a Java-based server and application very easily. He only needs to write a malicious code to a text or log file on the Java-based application, thus exploiting the Log4j library, and it will run an LDAP query. All right, let me just grab the laser pin. He only need to manage to write this kind of malicious payload into the vulnerable server. Okay, and then the Log4j library will call with an LDAP query to the attacker server, which will download a malicious payload to the vulnerable server, and then we will the attacker system and give him basically ability to run remote code. It's a very simple process, but very you can see this again it was discovered using Minecraft when user was just sending text messages with this kind of malicious code to each other, and the text messages was written inside the Java application text file, and immediately the attacker got a hold of the system basically because it utilized the Log4j library. So again, any Java-based application is vulnerable, and this is why it's so dangerous, because it's so easy to exploit this kind of vulnerability. And there are many types of Java application which can be exploited. So step to mitigate this kind of vulnerability, CVE 2021. Of course, you need to patch your vulnerable systems, right? You need to update to a later version which does not allow this kind of action. But the issue most of the time is to locate this kind of vulnerable systems. How can you know which processes are vulnerable? How can you know which servers are running this process? Locate everyone and patch all the different systems. This is not an easy task. Okay, so we help customers at Guardicore to locate this kind of system, to protect them first with virtual patching, and then also to update the systems, of course, to the latest versions. So the steps is identify vulnerable processes, and I'm going to show you how we can do that. Then we can monitor for indicator of a compromise if the system is vulnerable, if the system was exploited already. And of course, block internet communication lateral movement for any compromised system. So if a system had been compromised or is about to be compromised, we want to block internet connectivity to it, and also block the chance for it to have lateral movements. Now, the first step we can do is, of course, use reveal. Okay, we can just do it with filtering in the product, see which servers are running Java-based application, filter based on those, and discover anywhere where we have a Java process running. Then, of course, update it or virtually patch it in the way that we will discuss shortly. We can monitor using Insight as well. So this is another very very nice example we can use, because Guardicore is also offering insight for customers to help discover this kind of vulnerability. And we have already in the customer portal, we have an article regarding Log4j with many different types of queries to help identify servers which are vulnerable. So you can query for network accessible Java applications. You can query for Log4j jar files. You can query for Java applications which are not the usual Java type processes that you can discover. And you can even query to check exploitation attempts using Yara signature on the log files. So all of this is already available in the customer portal in Guardicore, in the knowledge base. Customers and prospects can use Insight to query and discover which servers are vulnerable, infected, exploited, and then basically remediate it. So the mitigation steps are as follows. Of course, we need to patch them, but if it's not possible to patch them, we can also limit incoming and outgoing connections. Okay, so of course, limit connections from internet sources, destinations, make sure only allowed communication is happening. Okay, only typical communication patterns, only things that you deem as legitimate. Okay, not only based on unique ports, block, of course, LDAP going to the internet. And if you discover some exploitation attempt using the signature Yara signature I mentioned above, you can of course put the system under full quarantine, block any inbound and outbound traffic for vulnerable services, and for applications that were identified as vulnerable and can't be patched. You can also block access to and from known attacker IOCs, and we already supply these, of course. So we already have a list of known attacker IOCs for this kind of vulnerability available for customers, and block outgoing traffic to the internet or internal and sensitive systems. Okay, so I'm running a bit quickly because I think I'm out of time.